as you all have come to see, I decided at this moment in time to get back around to carving these little Santas like has been in our challenge. You saw the little video about St. Nicholas and the thing we were doing to carve him out, so I'd say that, you remember we used the Buckeye wood, but I finally finished those off, sanded them, painted them, soaked them. This is how I got them to come out. There's some different ones I have out of some darker woods that are kind of painted in more white and vanilla colors and with black or brown boots, but decided to use these colors as it kind of went better with the Buckeye. But that's just kind of how I wanted to get us started off here to begin with, but that's just one of the things I was giving you just for an update on what you've seen in previous videos. But if you remember the time when we were carving these little Santas, I've decided that it was about time that I'd get back to doing a little video showcasing of that kind of work again. So we're going to put a little bit more work in that and show a little bit better how it's going to turn out. I might need to decide what we're going to do today, and it might be maybe rounding off some of these areas, like the area underneath his hands to go to his coat, and the area underneath his backpack to go to his coat. We might kind of work on that part today just to kind of try to keep this video going to the end and try to show a little more on how this is going to be able to turn out, so we're taking care of this matter the best way we can in such good ways as we can. And this is a time when we're going to kind of carve this out and try to round off these areas to make it be a little bit better for us, for others, for those around us that need to see anything, need to hear anything. Might even kind of trim a little bit more edge off of the backpack here to kind of make it a little bit rounder at this itself and get around this area. Try to shave loose what we have here. Take care of the little things we need. And I'd say, hopefully, I see this pencil back here, so I'm going to take that, and after I have carved off that area, we'll redraw the line here, kind of show a little bit more where it really needs to be, take it to the surface as far as it'll go, and show people that this is how Santa's coming. This is how Santa's showing. He's got a little character in him. And most of us know the old story about old Father Nicholas and the bishop, and how Santa was kind of based on his generous character and his sweet spirits. And there's so many people in history, we don't know what they all looked like, but they all just brought a little faith and character to us. And sometimes even the people who are written down in legends and history and tradition bring a lot to us. There's been some stuff I've watched a little bit of on YouTube, and some of y'all might have even seen my picture of old Paul Bunyan and Babe, and I just recently found the YouTube video of the Paul Bunyan cartoon I used to watch on the Disney Channel when I was a kid. It actually came out years earlier. It came out like back in the 50s, long before I was born. But it was one of those things where they tell you at the beginning all about the legends and all about the importance of people. And we know that the real Paul Bunyan was somebody who did like a lot of interesting work in the logging business, but you know, Babe the Blue Ox wasn't real. A lot of this stuff about him forming the mountains by wrestling with the ox, we know a lot of that stuff wasn't real, but there's just a lot of legend that comes with things and with people. I've also heard a little bit about Pecos Bill, for example. I've actually heard there's a couple of different people in history Pecos Bill is based upon. He gets his name from one and gets his character from another. I heard that there was some cowboy from Mexico that had an entirely different name that is what his character is based on, and I found out he gets his name from a certain historical figure that was in the Civil War who had the nickname Pecos Bill. I can't remember exactly what his real name was, but that was kind of the name they called him by, what he went by. And so there's so much I've learned. And then there's like what they did with Johnny Appleseed, for example. His real name was John Chapman. He was a Christian missionary who came to the United States as a settler and grew all the apple trees in the ground. And that was the truthful thing about him. But as we also kind of find out over time, there's been a lot of legends written about him as well. A lot of stories that are not true, but they just add a little more interest and meaning to his life. I've even had a book when I was a kid about Cochise the Indian and the story about his vulture. We don't know exactly what the truth about his vulture was, but we know that he was just a wonderful little character back in his days. He meant a lot, said a lot. There were those who they always did interesting things. There was like a Native American named Black Elk who I heard about. And I read a little story about how he changed the world. To get back to it with you all, I'd have to reread the story and find out a little bit more. But we know that in all my life, especially since my younger years, I've always enjoyed reading about important historical people and all the ways they've changed the world and became the heroes of all we have today, because we know that there's been several people of several types who have changed the world we know today, and any of us who do anything in this world just to try to improve things, try to make the best of ourselves, try to make the best of what we can be, we never know whether we're going to change the world people will know tomorrow. I don't know how it's going to be with me. There's been times in my life when I just wanted to kind of get the word out about my autism and about my disorder to try to get the understanding of people, and there was so much I experienced in life that could have been all the more reasons why I was willing to go out and take all the foolish risks I did. And even in some places, I mean, everybody couldn't understand everything, but I always kind of informed people about things, provided what information I could. Wouldn't surprise me if some people probably did a little bit of computer work to try to find out a little bit more about it than I might have been able to explain. And I've always heard there had been people who had kind of wanted to do that, really had a passion to do that, to try to help me out. They really wanted to understand me. They really wanted to understand other people. I mean, I tell you, most of my life I've been a genuine person, but it's just always been one of those things where we've all had to kind of be careful with each other, because there's people out there who, even in the places where all of us have worked in life, there's been those who kind of really run their mouths. You know, there's been those who kind of have little bad reputations for the ways they've treated other people in the workplace. There's been those who kind of always didn't say the nicest things in the nicest ways, and there's been those who just weren't all that considerate of other people and those around them. There's probably been people we've had to ignore a time or two, but then there gets to be those who get a little harder to ignore after a while. Sometimes it can go on too long. It can drive you crazy after a while. Sometimes it gets to the point where it goes a little too far, and sometimes the practical jokes become something that's spread around and get to be a practical issue. So it's all the things in life that we know and we see and that we think. There's going to be things that are going to come our way and tell us things we don't want to hear, tell us things that are going to hurt us. And, you know, I know one thing is we all have feelings. We all have feelings too. Everybody does. There's been times in my life that I've had that little matter to take into consideration sometimes. There's been times when I used to think that because of my own realities to accept, there probably wasn't so much to take into consideration. But in reality and in the real world, yes, there is. There's a lot to take into consideration because, you know, you might have certain motives. You might want the attention of certain people. There might be certain people in life who you want the attention of more than you want it from others. But then there's always the people you just kind of have to. Because I know in my lifetime, there's been times when I've gone out in places, probably handed out little handmade gifts to the people I wanted the attention of. Sometimes the people who I probably didn't want as much attention of got a little left out here and there, and you know, people's feelings got hurt at times, but there's little things like that we just kind of have to learn over time, and things like that, they'll just get better for us over time. We'll just learn a little more the older we get and the more we accept things, because there's times when, you know, we kind of say little things that can come off as creepy. I feel like most people who know me nowadays don't really think that of me, but in my younger years, there were probably times when there were guys I was friends with at times who I'd see them back on MySpace back in the days, posting little pet names onto the pages of the girls they corresponded with. There were times when I saw them do it and I would do it too. Some of the girls they did it to were okay with it. I mean, sometimes they wouldn't mind me doing it if they were that tight, but there always were the ones who, you know, they could kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable about it. I probably always didn't realize it was the kind of thing that was only for relationships. Little did I realize when I did it on one girl's page that her boyfriend saw it and probably thought she was dating another man and felt insecure. She felt uncomfortable because the names were said to her. So I tell y'all something, people, you know, it's just best we be careful what we do, because there's some stuff where an autistic man can see another do something and start to think it's realistic to do it in every situation and everywhere they go and with everyone they talk to. And, you know, sometimes you just have to kind of separate the situations a little bit, because I'm here to tell you all something, people. There's been times in my life when my own behavior was creepy. And I was thankful the other day when there was a girl she's a friend of mine and posted something on Twitter about how the creepy guys wouldn't leave her alone and asking them to go somewhere else. And I told her how much I try not to be, but how that I can come off that way if I'm not careful. And she said, I appreciate it, but you're not creepy. I told her that was good to know. So I think most people who know me probably know I'm not, but I mean, if they're a stranger and they don't know you, and sometimes, your behavior can kind of be that way and make them kind of think something like that of you. And there's just been times when some of my behaviors have been that way in life. It's probably been at least 10 years since it's happened, but in my life it's happened before. Thankfully, I mean, there's been girls in my life who, even as an older man, probably thought here and there that I was trying to stalk them. And sometimes a little behavior being a certain way can kind of make it seem that way. But there was one who it kind of happened that way with a little over a year ago, and I kind of made a little public post on Facebook in front of all my friends and didn't say her name, but made a reference to the unnerved individual and said that I hoped you could forgive me and give me another chance if I can learn to wait for your cues first. So I kind of gave it a little few months, and finally she did. She told me she hadn't seen me in a long time, but she understood the reasons why, and that's kind of how it is. I mean, when I make somebody feel unnerved or uneasy or uncomfortable, it often bothers me. It makes me feel bad for the person I've done it to. So it's a little time in our lives when I feel like there's a lot of caution that must be used, a lot of careful that we must be, because any situation can lead you to any kind of trouble you don't need to be in. Like I probably may have talked in the last video, in the one about the little sewing of the whale, about the little things that came up at Starbucks with the middle school age kids, and I'd say we are thankful that we got that settled, we got it taken care of, and I will say that there's been quite a few people there who have been such good, kind friends to me ever since, and they've really helped me out. They've talked to me when they could, and it was always a blessed place for me just to kind of come in, just to take a seat and relax and have a little coffee or tea or a little sparkling water or whatever I could get to drink. And it was such a blessed way to spend an evening. And to that matter, it still is. I still like to go there at night. Sometimes I'd say that it's a place where I try to be easy with everybody. Try to give everybody their space. Some people might talk to me a little bit, and if they can work while they're doing it, they will. And that's always wonderful. But there comes the times in my life when sometimes you just kind of have to realize people have a job to do, and kind of have to let them go about doing it. So that's just kind of the way that works, the way that goes. And sometimes I'd say that we just kind of have to be careful what we talk about. Sometimes I think that some conversation topics can be a little touchy to some people. They can be the kinds of things that, depending on people's experiences, what it reminds them of, it can be the kind of thing that, you just kind of have to be careful about it. Sometimes you have to be careful talking about your own experiences with things. You never know whether a person around you has had a similar experience. That was one of my hardest lessons to learn when I was working in a hospital and thinking I was the only one who had struggles, thinking I had to pass little notes around to tell people about what I struggled with in life. There's going to be times when people will get a little offended because there's just times when you just never know. Somebody might have had a similar life experience and you don't know it. You might be out there kind of trying to advocate for people like you or for somebody else like you, or even trying to just make some friends yourself, try to get people interested in being your friends and talking to you and stuff. But it's just one of those things where you just have to use so much caution, because you got to really find out who has something in common with you, whether or not it's going to work that way, what it's going to be like when they come to know you, and when you hear so much more. This is a little time when trimming around these edges. This little time, I say, taking care of these little matters. And of all things, I say that there's also little things I'm going to show as the video goes on. Thankfully, I've been able to finish quite a few things that need to be done by the holidays. Thankfully, we've gotten them taken care of. Thankfully, we've gotten them in very good view, and all the things in the conditions they need to be in to be sold to the person who ordered them. Because I knew a lady who, she had somebody who, like, gave her these cedar blocks, and I told you about her in a previous video. She wanted me to carve her a certain little Santa from them, and I certainly did. And there's probably going to be things in the future I'm going to be able to use them for. But I told her about how hard a wood cedar is, and that, you know, there's some things that's good for carving and some things it's not. Sometimes just depending on the nature of the grain or how slick it is, it can be the kind of thing where some things can be harder to carve out of it than others can be, and especially if it has as much detail as that original Santa did that she wanted. So I ended up having to tell her that there were just things about it I'd have to be so careful about, as far as how to make it come around, make it come and go. But this little work you see here, this is how it's coming tonight. I'm kind of getting to the point where this little thing is coming out so nice and round, especially around the bottom of its coat. And that's how it pretty much needs to be. It needs to go a long way, shine a long way, take care of little things as they come, as they go, and take care of little matters as they need to be. Because I come here so that I can brighten the days of all of you all with all I have to say, all I have to share, all I have to do. And a little bright moment can really mean a lot to somebody if you're really looking out for that person, if you're really looking out for them, and you see who they are and see where they are, see what they're doing. Brighten somebody's day, I say. There's a little meme that goes around that says, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Because yes, it's just a time when we're all going through something. It's just a time when the way things have been with this pandemic and all, it's just one of those times when we all got to watch out. We all got to take care. We all got to see each other from a different point of view and have love for one another all the time. It's just a faith that goes around. What goes around comes around. And I'd say there's little things we know where we find out in our videos that everybody's actions are going to come back on them some way, somehow, and you never know how it's going to be. Lots of times, you know, you don't have to be the one who puts the action out there, because if, let's say, you're the one who's trying to bring somebody else's actions back on them, you are kind of making your own actions, and your own actions could come back on you, as I learned in one of these videos I've watched. But just to tell you all a little bit more to that theme, It was kind of like how back in July, for example, when I purchased my new bandsaw to make the big cuts out of, I also purchased a little one online to do some of the little work with some of the thinner blades I had purchased. And when it all came down to it, I ended up finding out it was a scam company. The company said it was delivered and all, said it was shipped, but the confirmation number I got was not accurate. So we didn't know what it was going to be, but it all got taken care of, because we won't go into all the detail about how it was back in July when the little things that happened with PayPal happened, but it's finally been refunded. That's the good thing about it. It's finally been refunded because we all got it under control now. And when these people in this other country made the scams that they made that I didn't know how it was going to be, how it was going to go. And there were times when, after I placed the order for the saw and never got the saw, but never got my money back either, there were times when it finally came down to the fact that, as of last evening, I finally got notification in email from PayPal that I had been refunded. So I just knew one day that even if I never got the saw or never got my money back, I just knew that justice was going to be served. And if justice was going to be served, then it was going to be carried out somehow. Little do we know what way it's going to be, but we also just find out that apparently they got enough complaints that it all came back on them, and perhaps even in their other country and their other jurisdictions, anything could have gone any particular way. Enough people could have complained to PayPal about them, or no telling what else, but thankfully it's all been taken care of and it's all in the past. We have finally closed the case and finally got it done. So it's just a little thing we need to say in this world to keep our minds positive. Just think positive. That's the best we can do, is think positive. Because in this life, I say, there's a lot of negative in this world. A lot of negative that comes and goes in this life. We all don't see things the same way we used to. We all don't see things the same way. There are things in life where we all kind of view from different standpoints. We see things differently from one angle to the next. There are angles in life as to what we do, angles in life as to what we take. We try to have to come to realize that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, even if it looks that way or even if we think it is. But as I come to a conclusion here, I'd like to share that I have already gotten the edges done to all 10 of these Santas, carving around the coat and making it as round as it needs to be. With little matters taken care of, we can now move on. And before I close this video, I got one other little thing to share. I told you about the lady for whom I was making this Santa, but here's how the cedar one came out. It didn't come out as detailed as I hoped it would, or as she hoped it would, but I told her that I made it come out the best I could, and she was thankful for that. So I'd say yes for now. It's time to close the video for the day, and I will say hopefully after the holiday season I'll have time to carve and make a little more, have a little more to show, a little more to share, and this will be such a better world to come. Thank you. Goodbye.